in the film Beyond the Rainbow. This would be the first of 58 films that she would make between 1922 and 1933. Bow was a versatile actress whose characters ranged from a wrongfully accused convict in the dramatic Free to Love to a freewheeling party girl in the comedy My Lady of Whims. In 1927, she had breakthrough performances with the release of two films, Wings and It. Although Wings was an important film for Bow, her defining screen role came in the film version of Elinor Glynn's novel, The It Girl. Bow's performance in It had far-reaching effects on society. Clara had it, a quality that was desired by both genders. Women emulated her flapper style, while men sought out women with the alluring qualities that made Clara so tempting. The It Revolution captured the qualities of the new modern woman who broke away from the traditional roles of femininity. She didn't hide her sexuality and acted masculine by drinking and smoking in public. Clara became known as the It Girl and received 45,000 fan letters a month. All this adulation soon came crashing to a halt, however, with the invention of talkies, or motion pictures with sound. Clara's thick Brooklyn accent didn't come across well on screen, and she was not a fan of the new breed of film, claiming,
"I hate talkies. They're stiff and limiting. You'll lose a lot of your cuteness because there's no chance for action. And action is the most important thing to me. And people are so quick to pounce on you if your voice isn't perfect."
In 1931, she married cowboy star Rex Bell and retired from the film world at the age of 26. The rest of her life, she tried to stay out of the limelight, but was hampered by numerous scandals and mental health problems. On September 26, 1965, America's first sex symbol died of a heart attack in West Los Angeles at the age of 60. While Clara Bow flew into the hearts of moviegoers in Wings, a real-life aviation drama captured the heart of the world as Charles Lindbergh became the first person to make a non-stop solo flight across the Atlantic Ocean. Aviation started to take flight in the 1920s. Flying wasn't just a tool of war anymore. Pilots were hired to fly mail across the country as well as passengers with the emergence of private airlines. Stunt pilots, known as barnstormers, wowed crowds at fairgrounds with death-defying feats like flying through barns, under bridges, and upside down. The ultimate, seemingly unattainable stunt was a solo flight across the treacherous Atlantic Ocean. In 1919, hotel owner Raymond Ortiz offered $25,000 to the first aviator to fly non-stop from New York to Paris. For years, pilots attempted the flight. Many of them did not survive the journey or were badly injured. By 1927, the prize was still up for grabs. Former barnstormer and airmail pilot Charles Augustus Lindbergh believed that the money could be his if he had the right plane. With the financial backing of 9 St. Louis businessmen and engineering help from the Ryan Aeronautical Company of San Diego, he designed the Spirit of St. Louis. On May 10, 1927, Lindbergh tested the plane by flying from San Diego to New York City with a brief stopover in St. Louis. He arrived in 20 hours and 21 minutes, a transcontinental record. It was pouring rain on the morning of May 20th when Lindbergh prepared for takeoff from an airstrip in Long Island en route to Paris, France. During liftoff, the hopeless-looking plane barely made it over a parked tractor and some overhead wires at the end of the runway. The Spirit of St. Louis carried 425 gallons of gasoline for the long journey. To save weight, the monoplane flew without a radio or parachute, and the cockpit seat was made out of wicker. The airplane had no windshield, only side windows, and to see ahead, Lindbergh had to use a movable periscope. The flight was rougher than imagined as Lindbergh flew blindly through dense clouds while ice formed on his wings. Oftentimes he would nod off and regain consciousness just before the Spirit of St. Louis was about to plummet into the cold ocean water. Finally, on May 21st, after flying 3,610 miles, Lucky Lindy landed at Le Bourget Airport in Paris, France. The historic flight had taken 33.5 hours. Over 100,000 cheering fans in France greeted the international hero. Once back in the States, President Calvin Coolidge awarded him the Congressional Medal of Honor. New York City treated him to a ticker-tape parade where 1,800 tons of confetti were dropped, more than 10 times the amount used to celebrate the end of World War I. The quiet and shy Lindbergh would spend most of his life in the public eye. The nation was riveted in 1932 when his baby was kidnapped. And he gained a substantial following speaking out against America's involvement in World War II. He will always be remembered for his courageous solo flight across the Atlantic. Charles Lindbergh died of cancer on August 26, 1974. At the Peace Conference in Versailles, France, President Woodrow Wilson saw his idea of a League of Nations turned into a reality. The League was dedicated to solving international conflicts peacefully. In a move representative of American sentiments, the Senate rejected membership in the League of Nations. In the aftermath of World War I, Americans wanted to turn away from the problems overseas and tended to isolate themselves from international events. While America's collective head was buried in the sand, leaders influential to America's future were rising throughout Europe. For the Russian people, the years after World War I were a time of dying. Civil war, disease, and starvation took the lives of 9 million people between 1918 and 1920. 5 million more died in the Great Famine of 1921. During this time, Bolshevik leader Vladimir Lenin was in power. In 1921, Lenin developed the new economic policy that combined features of capitalism and socialism and marked the end of war communism. The economic situation began to improve, helped by the incentive of private ownership for workers. In 1924, Lenin created a socialist society called the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. The USSR was a dictatorship controlled by Lenin and his communist associates. Lenin died in 1924. Leon Trotsky and Joseph Stalin waged a bitter 4-year battle. The two leaders had opposing ideas concerning the direction of communism. Stalin searched for ways to consolidate his power in the Soviet Union, while Trotsky and his followers sought world revolution. Stalin's political expertise vaulted him to the position of sole dictator of the USSR. He exiled Trotsky to Siberia, then banished him from the Soviet Union.
Stalin's trial against me is built upon false confessions extorted by modern inquisitorial methods in the interest of the ruling clique. There are no crime in history more terrible in intention and execution than the Moscow trials of Zinoviev Kamenev and of Petakov Radek. His trials developed not from communism, not from socialism, but from Stalinism.
In 1928, Stalin launched his first 5-year plan as an attempt to get the Soviet Union caught up with other industrialized nations. Progress had its price. Millions of peasants were either moved onto collective farms or forced to move into cities to work in factories. Resistors were starved to death, sent to slave camps, or executed by the secret police. Stalin's persuasion through terror foreshadowed the purges he would inflict on the Soviet people in the years ahead. Meanwhile, in Italy, Benito Mussolini was trying to rebuild the Roman Empire. In 1919, he started the fascist movement, which was named after the Roman symbol for imperial power. The fascists were an extremely nationalistic group that appealed to discontented elements of the working and middle classes. They opposed democratic and socialist movements, held racist ideologies and aggressive military policy, and believed in